How you doing, guys? This is going to be the beginning of the fuel system videos. Okay, so I'm going to have a basic layout here of what you're going to need to do to E85 convert your OBS with your LS swap. There are obviously, more than one way to skin a cat. This is how I choose to skin said cat. And it's probably the easiest way, well, at least I think it's the easiest way, because that's why I chose to do it this way. I'll probably end up changing this after turbo times, because I think fuel feed on E85 may become a problem. But due to the way that I chose to do this currently, there was no sense in going over a 6 a.m. line, because, well, flex fuel sensors 6 a.m. or 3/8 or 10 millimeter, whatever. Okay, so I've already changed my pump. I went ahead and bought a new for the truck stock housing from like Rock Auto. I mean, it was stupid cheap. It was like 30 or 40 bucks. The reason I went ahead and bought an entirely new one is because my gas gauge didn't work anyway. So, if everything's functional and you want to reuse your old one, you can. There's tons of videos on this. You simply remove your pump module, fit the new pump module, which I used a 525 liter per hour Walboro for like a Hellcat. You can also use the 450 liter per hour like GM E85 pump, and it's super simple. I'm going to go out here and get my old one to kind of show you. Even though you're not familiar with this, you should probably check out a whole video on it. But anyway, okay, so here's my old pump. What you'll do when you get your E85 pump is remove this, which is the actual fuel pump. This little rubber hose right here. This is a TBI pump, so it's only like 16 psi. So it has these stupid push clips. I would not reuse those, because obviously you're jumping up to 53 psi or 58.5. I'm sorry. So you remove this and the sock, and the new pump is a little bigger at the bottom here and has a different plug. But what you do is you just find the lead wires here and you cut those, and these are the ones off of my old pump. Actually, this is for the E85 pump. It comes with a plug and you just splice them together. It's pretty simple. Comes with, like, my pump came with butt connectors. For this task, you can solder them. I'm not really a huge fan of soldering just because I'm lazy. But at least get a set of these crimps, because that's not really something you want coming off or shorting out. Say hello, Brian. I was really hoping that you would say hello, Brian. Anyway, that's the Brian there. Brian doesn't like being on camera. Brian's cousin is, well, I can't say what he is. Anyway, so there are more comprehensive videos on that, and it's pretty simple. And if you're doing the rest of this, you're more than capable of that. So this is the basic layout. You have the pump obviously coming off that hat. Plenty of companies sell these fittings that you can't see, and they're just the GM O-ring to AN fittings, and they're super easy to find. Anyway, you're going to come off of that with your feed in return into this. I actually bought this with the adapters. This is a Corvette filter / fuel pressure regulator. One very convenient thing for us is that it is exactly the same size as the factory frame mount fuel filter. So you simply put it in the same place. Your feed and return lines end up being about 3 foot, which if you ever purchase any PTFE line, you know, the less of it you can use, the better. You come out of this, you have, you know, your fittings, and like I said, you can buy this with that stick out. Then you got a straight PTFE fitting into another 6A straight PTFE fitting into these, which you will need like 4 of, or 3 of, sorry. I only have 1, that's why I know you need 3. So that's how you connect to your E85 sensor, and then you'll need another one to come off of the E85 sensor to, you know, go to your fuel termination. So, I mean, it's relatively simple in this setup. You want your E85 sensor to be in your supply line typically. If you have to up your fuel system, where you have an 8A in supply and a 6A in return, you can put it in the return line, but if you get fuel cavitation, or like you're using, you know, a maximum amount, fuel aeration, you're using a maximum amount of your fuel system, you know, your E85 sensors or flex fuel sensors not giving the fuel it needs to read. So that's kind of a caveat with that. But obviously in, you know, bigger power systems, you don't have a ton of choice. But I mean, this should still support well over 600 horsepower on E. Another thing I'd like to point out is I'm using PTFE line. PTFE is pretty much the most widely chemical resistant line you're going to find. So that's why I'm using it. Like, it's E85 compatible. I think it's methanol compatible, not that it's big enough to ever support that, but. Okay, we've magically morphed to underneath the truck. There's a couple of things I want to talk about under here. This is the fuel pressure regulator combo from a Corvette. And there's where my lines are ran. Okay, so when you have a day like today where stuff gets in the way of you accomplishing anything big, it's a great time to accomplish things that are going to bite you in the long run if you don't. For example, okay, obviously I had to adjust my shift linkage and reroute my shift cable. Uses the same cable as the Turbo 400 did, but like this is where I had that before, because it was a quicker turnaround because the trans's not as long. Did some stuff like, well, you can't see anything because there's no light. Hold on. Okay, so not the best light, but yeah, this is a Milwaukee ratchet. So you can't really tell, but I tweaked the bracket a little bit just to move it up. That way it kind of gets out of the way of the exhaust a little better. And I will be heat wrapping. Well, the pipe right here is already heat wrapped, but all of this will be heat wrapped just to keep heat off of the cable. You know, I took my time and thought about things like the drive shaft, you know, was the cable out of the way of that, and then secure your fuel line and make sure your filter's secure. And then this is going to kick back up here and go up the firewall, and you know, I'm going to make sure it's secure up there. Got to do my torque converter bolts, decide on which one of these plugs is coming out for the wideband to go into. Yeah, there's a ton of things under here, like the leaking pinion seal. They are gonna bomb that from the way this camera's flipping around. But I like the leaking pinion seal, you know, that's super easy to change right now. So I'm gonna do that and a few of these things. And there's that beautiful cross member there. So yeah, I'll get back with you in a minute. So yeah, that was the basic gist of the fuel system. I'll get back with you with when I wire up the E85 sensor. I haven't actually mounted it yet. We've got this nice little 3D printed bracket that I'll show you guys. But yeah, like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you watching.